Whole Cake Island. The Straw Hats' journey through Big Mom's horrific wonderland is nearly over. I have loved pretty much everything about this arc, but I do think the ending has some weak spots. Today, I'm going to be discussing Katakuri versus Luffy, the Straw Hats trying to sail out from the Toto Land, and Sanji's mission to make the best damn cake one could ever bake. There's a ton to get through today, and I'm not gonna lie, I cried, but that doesn't mean there isn't some criticism to be had. To those of you just joining us for the first time, I'm Denny, and this is my series where I go through the One Piece anime as a first-time viewer and offer my first impressions. If you want to hear my thoughts on the previous sections of this arc, there's a link in the description. Now, without further ado, let's sail on.
Let's start the video.
The primary action of this final section is broken down into 3 unique plot threads. The first is Luffy versus Katakuri. I wasn't sure how to feel about this mochi fortune teller at first. In the previous section, he seemed like this calm, cool, collected dude who loved his precious mama, but here it becomes clear that he isn't going to be like the typical villain, which I appreciated. The first real example of this comes when random goons are running their mouths, mocking Luffy, whereas Katakuri straight up tells Luffy that he knows he's a threat and knows if he allows Luffy to escape, he'll only become a bigger one down the line. Yes, Katakuri claims his abilities are on another level that Luffy cannot surpass, but it's clear he's not the typical, overly arrogant villain who will eventually be put in his place. In fact, we see that Katakuri doesn't just talk the talk, but mochis the mochi. Anything Luffy throws at him, he can return and then some. He really gives Luffy a taste of his own medicine, and there's nothing our rubber captain can do but take it. We'll check back in on this elastic showdown in a moment, but for now, let's focus in on the second plot thread. Following Pedro's sacrifice, the crew is nearly overwhelmed by his loss. I liked Pedro, I thought he was a fun new character, but this moment did feel a bit odd to me. Then it occurred to me that I don't think an ally of the Straw Hats has ever died before. At least, not before their eyes. The closest thing I can think of is Pell in Alabasta, but of course he didn't even die, which ruins the moment. But also, the Straw Hats didn't really have any interaction with him. It's incredible that at 800 plus episodes, this crew has barely encountered death on their journey, so it makes sense that Pedro's death nearly derails this escape attempt. However, Jinbei, being the big thick fish daddy he is, snaps the crew out of their mourning, telling them that Pedro would want them to keep going until they were safe. Good timing too, because Big Mom appears to literally be walking on water after them, which was a horrifying visual, but then it's revealed that she's walking on some candy slug made by Perospero. Lick. Why is she walking if it's carrying her? Cool visual and shut up.
He said it! He said it!
To avoid a giant sentient wave, Jinbei essentially uses the Sunny to surf it, helming the ship all by himself with one hand. This was so cool, and it's made such a big deal of that it seems like Jinbei is going to be the new permanent helmsman. I'm actually very down with that. And the third plot thread picks up with Sanji, Pudding, and Chiffon arriving at Cacao Island to begin preparations on the replacement wedding cake. They will be assisted by the WCI-31, head chefs from across the Toto Land, so Pudding has to alter their memories so they don't freak out about Sanji, which includes making them believe the wedding actually happened. Naturally, hilarity ensues. I really like that we get to see Sanji take lead in this cooking mission, commanding this squad of chefs to make the perfect cake. And we hear about Sanji's secret ingredient, which will make it all beyond delicious. And this isn't the case, but at first, I swear to God, I thought it was going to be love. That would have been so dumb. Ugh, who would even want that? I would have loved it. But around this time, I also started thinking about another very important question. Who has the better eyebrows, Sanji or Jinbei? Let me know what you think in the comments, because there are pros and cons to each. This is a very serious topic, so please treat it as such. Meanwhile, we see that Germa has held Big Mom's forces back, but tricked the main force into thinking they were conquered, and the Sun Pirates, particularly Aladdin's wife Praline, has convinced the Territory Slugs, through song, to take a damn day off. They work too hard! Which means the Sunny cannot be tracked, and since Jinbei surfed that wave, there's a brief time where Big Mom's forces believe the Straw Hats to be dead. Back in the mirror world, Katakuri continues to dominate Luffy. And now comes a scene that really had me rolling my eyes because of how poorly it was done. The Straw Hats begin communicating with Luffy through a broken mirror. And, so Big Mom's forces don't hear them, Chopper tells Luffy to be quiet and run away. They explain their plan to meet Luffy on Cacao Island, but when Katakuri caught up to Luffy, I swear to God, everyone's brains must have fallen deep into their asses. The crew obviously doesn't know exactly what Luffy is dealing with, but when he doesn't respond, and the sounds of wanton destruction echo all around him, the crew keeps shouting at him for a response. Like, hey, are you trying to be discreet or not? Also, can't you hear? Don't you have eyes? It's a goddamn mirror. I know you can see some of what's going on. Yes, at one point Luffy puts the shard in his mouth, but it eventually comes out, and while getting absolutely pounded by Katakuri over and over, they're still like, hey Luffy, you okay? Hey Luffy, everything alright? Hey Luffy, you're not responding because it's too dangerous, are you? I get what the purpose of this scene was. Luffy finally responds by putting on a happy face for his crew, even though he's screwed. But everything leading up to that just disregarded basic aspects of reality. Anyway, so that's the plan. I just wish it was handled a bit better, and the crew acted like they had the brain of someone older than 12 between them. Now, the fight takes some interesting turns. As Luffy is mocked by Brule, he goes to attack her, but is easily stopped by Katakuri, who shows an intense desire to protect his siblings. This moment right here is the first time we ever see him get emotional about anything, and I thought this might be his greatest weakness that Luffy could exploit. There are a couple weaknesses that Katakuri has, but notably, Luffy doesn't take advantage of a single one of them, which I thought was pretty interesting. Instead, he continues to take a thrashing, which is only amplified when Katakuri busts out his awakened ability. He uses this pretty much the same exact way Doflamingo used his awakened ability, which I thought was kind of a letdown. Turning things into Mochi just isn't that exciting to me, and didn't really feel that different from his existing power set. The first round of the fight ends with Katakuri stopping Luffy from going 4th gear. Unlike the majority of dumb villains, Katakuri continues to state that he's not underestimating Luffy, and won't just sit back and let him increase his power. So, the obvious move is to crush Luffy beneath a pile of mochi, and then leave Bond villain style. Overall, I actually found the first round of this fight to be pretty boring. Katakuri doesn't bring a lot of personality to the table, and the entire round Luffy's just taking a beating. There's no problem with that, but when it's so consistent, it loses its excitement. Something that did keep me consistently excited and engaged were the wacky hijinks surrounding the baking of that damn wedding cake. I can see some people being annoyed with the Pudding Sanji dynamic, but I thought it was pretty funny and a great reversal of the usual Sanji gag. Honestly, the entire comedy trio of Pudding, Sanji, and Chiffon just hit every single time for me. Sanji's actually a straight man in this situation, Pudding is the love-struck fool getting shot through the heart, and Chiffon is there to bring her back to reality. Oda's ability to take 3 established characters, put them in a new situation, and immediately develop a fun dynamic between them is incredible. He fell into the Pudding Sanji Chiffon shtick as if he'd been writing it the whole time. What a damn pro. The plot really starts getting moving when Brule calls Pudding to tell her about the Straw Hats' plan. Meanwhile, Oven has arrived to back Pudding up, but catches Pound making a commotion outside the kitchen, trying to see Chiffon. The poor dolt is beaten and sent away, while the cake is completed. Unfortunately, outside of the kitchen sitcom paradise, the cooks begin to face some new hardships. Oven captures Chiffon, who is then rescued thanks to the efforts of Pound, although it was really a disguised Sanji, and we find out that Chiffon doesn't know who Pound is. This was really interesting, and I thought this plot point was going to go in the drastically different direction of some Pudding memory manipulation, but instead, it's revealed to be something much sadder. Around the same time, Gang and the Fire Tank Pirates bust onto Cacao Island with their amphibious ship, trying to rescue Chiffon, despite her telling them to go on without her, because they're her only true family. We then see how she was treated after Lola's departure. Big Mom beat Chiffon and told her, "Kids who serve no purpose to me aren't my family." Unsurprisingly, monstrous. Oven tries to stop the escaping fire tanks, who now have Chiffon, Sanji, Pudding, and the wedding cake aboard, but once again, he's stopped by Pound. As she looks on from the sea, Chiffon still doesn't recognize him, and we finally learn why. We see that on the day Chiffon and Lolo were born, young Big Mom, who surprisingly looks kinda sexy, threw Pound out of her life. She told him that he shouldn't be presumptuous and assume he is part of her family, since now his purpose has been served. Before Oven likely kills Pound, he's able to finally look on at his daughter's new family, shout congratulations to them on their marriage, and make his grandson smile. All of this was extremely interesting to me because it finally reveals exactly what Big Mom's family is all about. She just uses people. She doesn't care for them and she doesn't love them unless they're of value to her. All Big Mom's husbands were just breeders, exactly like how Judge treated Sora, and once she got what she needed from them to create little useful soldiers, they were cast out. Even children who have done nothing wrong but look like another child who disappointed her are beaten and pushed aside. Her paradise is just that. Her paradise. Throughout this arc, we have seen the selfishness and gluttony of this emperor on full display. How even those who have paid to be in the Toto Land with their own souls are not guaranteed safety if they get in the way of Big Mom's uncontrollable desires. The Toto Land is her playground, filled with only those who are of use to her, and once that use is dried up, they are cast out. You are not allowed to leave the Toto Land of your own free will, only through Mother's will. She is truly a monster who has cultivated enough mass to generate her own self-sustaining orbit, where she lies at the center. But now, the weapon to defeat her has been crafted. Gang wants to poison the cake, but Sanji refuses to let that happen, saying that they're going to defeat the enemy with flavor. Back in the mirror world, Katakuri gets some much needed fleshing out. Don't get me wrong, I think he was a cool character up to this point, but that's about all he was. He left Luffy in a hurry to get his daily Miranda, which is provided for him by a small squad of chefs. He claims he needs to eat sweets to recharge his energy, and since he's so hard-boiled, he builds a shrine out of mochi where he eats in private because no one has ever seen him eat. Meanwhile, Luffy busts out of the mochi pile and through the shrine to find Katakuri lounging around, gorging himself on donuts with his weird mouth. This may not seem like that big of a deal considering the meanest, toughest bad bitch in this land is a giant lunatic obsessed with eating sweets, but Katakuri has built a very different reputation. He's the perfect older brother, the tough, calm, cool, and collected dude who is unbeatable and infallible. Brule even said that Katakuri had never been on his back since he was born. The legend goes he came out of the womb and then slept in a chair. So this exposure by Luffy is major. So major in fact that Katakuri kills the chefs and lashes out at Luffy, but he is suddenly on the back foot. For a second. I thought this was all great, and the fight was finally gonna take a turn, but unfortunately, I was dead wrong. Luffy was only able to get some hits in because Katakuri was momentarily too mad to use his abilities effectively. Again, I thought this weakness may be relevant in the fight, but it never is. So, although Luffy gets some hits in, Katakuri just calms down, and the fight goes right back to how it was before. Even using 4th gear, Luffy cannot contend with Katakuri's skill. Also, Luffy does discover that Katakuri can see into the future here, and it slipped my mind that he didn't know that, since we as the audience have known this pretty much since his introduction. In retrospect, I think that's why I found the first and second rounds so boring. It's essentially just Luffy getting his ass beat over and over again to discover something the audience has known for a long time. I think that really hampered my enjoyment. It's easy to be capped in hindsight, but in my opinion, I think this would have been better if either the audience didn't know about Katakuri's observation ability until Luffy found out about it, or Luffy should have known about it at the start of their fight. Instead, what we got makes for some pretty poorly paced and sloppy storytelling. Anyway, with 4th gear set to expire, Luffy uses Brule to hop out of the mirror world so that he can recover his haki in 10 minutes. They end up on the Nut Island, which is under attack by Big Mom. Perfect! This is a sequence that just felt like padding. I get the story was trying to keep Luffy's portion from getting stale, but running around fighting worthless goons was not the kick in the pants his section needed. Also, Big Mom is attacking Nut Island against Parosparrow's will, and that doesn't make any sense to me. She gets there on his candy slug. Does he not have control of his own powers? Then she also uses that slug to attack Luffy against his wishes. How the hell can she do that, and why can't he just stop her? This is where I really feel things begin to get pretty sloppy for the sake of climactic action, and the lack of consistency or basic rational thought really took me out of the story. This only continues when we bounce back out to sea. The Straw Hats have been rediscovered after reports of their death had been greatly exaggerated, and they are slowly being surrounded by Big Mom's troops. The bulk of what I'm talking about now is presented to us pretty much immediately after Luffy returns to the Mirror World from Nut Island, and yet Big Mom is now right behind the Straw Hats. How the hell did she catch up so quickly? How did Parasparrow, Lick, get her to leave the Nut Island? Did any of that matter? Do you see what I mean about this portion of the story? Things just feel really sloppy. There isn't necessarily one thing I take issue with, it's more so a conglomeration of a bunch of tiny things that happen in quick succession, almost daring you not to say something. Everything having to do with the Nut Island, firstly, felt like anime filler, and secondly, did damage to the story being told without any notable benefit. I apologize, but the opposite of heaping praise, peeping haze, is just beginning. This is a moment that I've actually been waiting for. Carrot to do literally anything in the story. While the night is approaching, Carrot asks just the rhetorical question you'd like to hear from an already beast-like human: is it a full moon tonight? Yeah, kinda out of nowhere, we're set up for a were-rabbit reveal real quick, and that's exactly what we get. With the Sunny now in some serious trouble, Carrot transforms into a Sulong, which I will say looks absolutely sick. Credit where it's due, this mystical beast transformation looks like the perfect blend between an elegant magical creature and a rabid monster. And she's seriously powerful, like insanely powerful, and that's actually my biggest problem. She essentially skips straight to Super Saiyan 2 and is soaring through the air. I don't care if this isn't technically flying, this is flying. And she can take down an entire fleet single-handedly. You know, Carrot, who hasn't done anything useful this entire time. Yeah, turns out everything interesting about her has been saved for a 5-minute sequence. Also, even though Carrot is a clown, Pedro certainly isn't, and he should have known tonight was a full moon. And he should have given the crew a heads up about this wild card ability, which he had ample time to do over the week they were traveling together, especially because they were going on what everyone assumed to be a suicide mission. Anyway, we find out that a Sulong is some kind of Mink exclusive transformation that Jinbei knows about because he knows everything. The rest of the crew just watches as Carrot decimates Daifuku's fleet, and yet we still know nothing about Electro? We get a whole extra random transformation explained, but don't worry, the electricity powers we've seen since the Mink's introduction will just go unexplored. Why am I so grumpy about this? This is cool. I'm sure most of you think this is cool too. Why have I allowed Carrot to get under my skin? Do I just hate rabbits? I don't think so. Anyway, so this indestructible form is given a weakness in that if you use it too much, you die. Conveniently vague limitations. So Carrot zonks out right as she destroys the last of the ships, is rescued by Brook, and brought back to the Sunny. Now, I was actually much more invested in the coming showdown with the crew and Big-ish Mom. The old bag is starting to get thinner as this quest for cake has gone on, and this immediately had me drawing similarities between her and Luffy. What the hell is up with these pirates' metabolisms? In Big Mom's case, since she had some hefty layers of wrinkled love lumps, now she's in better shape than before. Even Parasparrow, Lick, is impressed and terrified with her revitalized athleticism. She summons Prometheus and Zeus, goes crazy fire hair mode, and lands on the Sunny. First time a main antagonist has ever been aboard the Straw Hat ship, this was not good. Jinbei has a great showing against her. He does his best to protect the Sunny, but is smacked away. Everyone else struggles to keep the ship intact until Jinbei re-emerges and delivers one hell of a punch that sends her flying off. Brook also had a decent showing, but god damn, do I wish he'd stop with the fucking panty line. I get it, it's his gag, but it really stopped being funny 300 episodes ago because he says it way too frequently. If he kept it in his back pocket and only used it once in a blue moon, it would actually kill. If he hadn't said it for a while up to this point, when he says it to stun Big Mom, that could have been a huge laugh moment, But for some reason he said it like 4 times right before this, all in reference to Carrot, who, according to the One Piece wiki, is 15. Anyway, in her stunned state, Nami turns the tables on Zeus and shocks Big Mom big time. The Sunny sails on with Big Mom in pursuit, but I think this was an overall great showing for this portion of the crew, that they were legit able to hold back an Emperor of the Sea, even without their captain. Although, to be fair, really, Jinbei did the bulk of the work. So, back in the Mirror World, Luffy has made his grand re-entrance to take on Katakuri. The Mochi Man points out that Luffy simply could have run away, but we all know that's not how Luffy rolls. His goal is to surpass Katakuri's observation haki, and I did think that was both cool and refreshing. Usually these final fights are all about who can clobber the other hardest with their beefy muscles, but having a battle of skill determine the winner is unique. Unfortunately, the fight continues to feel really stretched and repetitive. Katakuri says, "You're weak." Luffy responds, "Shut up." Luffy tries to dodge Katakuri's newest attack, but fails. Repeat. This is the beginning and end for at least 3 episodes in a row, not even counting how many times this happens overall. At this point, I really needed something to change, and it does, and I should have been more careful with what I wished for. Suddenly, one of the little sisters of the Charlotte family, Flampy, is hiding in the Mirror World with a gaggle of goons. She's apparently been consistently voted the best younger sister by the family for years, which is baffling to me, but that's where her head is at. She wants to help Katakuri out to get the much coveted good job pat on the head from her perfect older brother. She is incredibly annoying and very contrived. This feels like one more late game out of nowhere ass pull that requires an entire exposition dump during the heat of the action. We have met so many siblings already, I'm not sure why this had to be a brand new one, but she starts shooting Luffy with paralyzing darts. When Katakuri realizes this, he gets surprisingly upset. He marches up to her hiding place and fucking stabs himself through the gut. He tells Flampy and her cronies not to patronize men while they're fighting, and if they want to laugh at something so trivial like Luffy struggling from the paralyzing agent, then they should laugh at him too. Here, he reveals his face to them, and this was really interesting. Regardless of my thoughts on Flampy, she does act as a catalyst for a massive character moment. It may not seem like a big deal to the audience, but in context, Katakuri's kept his face hidden and kept up his perfect persona for decades. Yet now, because Luffy's being insulted, he decides to expose himself. I'm gonna talk about Katakuri a bit later, but this really shot up my opinion of him. Flampy and her men, who must be the dumbest goons we've ever encountered, begin mocking Katakuri for his appearance, which I find odd because compared to most of his other siblings, he looks pretty damn normal. She starts talking like she's gonna take out both Luffy and Katakuri, but they easily knock her ass out with their Conqueror's haki, and thank God that's the last we see of that annoying piece of shit. There was already a respect brewing between these two pirates, but after witnessing Katakuri essentially defending Luffy's honor, that respect is solidified. Katakuri apologizes to Luffy for Flampy's actions, and Luffy says that fairness isn't guaranteed in a pirate fight, and it's his own fault for not dodging. Finally, the atmosphere of the battle changes as Katakuri says he no longer believes Luffy is that much weaker than him. The final round begins. I like how throughout this fight, we see little flashbacks to Luffy's training with Rayleigh. This first popped up in the Doflamingo battle with the reveal of 4th gear, and I think this is a fun storytelling well that Oda can reasonably continue to go back to when an explanation for Luffy's skills is required. I also really appreciate that we are shown that Luffy is slowly training himself during the battle, and although he's still taking a beating, he is beginning to get better at using his observation haki. That's excellent. I love to see people not just instantly being great at something they're trying for the first time. Katakuri realizes Luffy's growing ability and really throws everything he has at him, but not to be bested, Luffy busts out his newest transformation, Snake Man. So I guess that showcase of Tank Man wasn't just for a gag and was a real tease that Luffy will have multiple fighting forms with 4th gear. I really like that. It keeps the technique way more versatile and keeps you on the edge of your seat, as you're never really sure what new trick Luffy might pull out next, the next time he balloons up his body. Such a smart decision. Like Bounce Man before it, we are shown a flashback to Rayleigh, which explains where Snake Man came from, although it's unclear if Luffy ever actually used it before now. I tend to think this was his first time, but I could be wrong. Essentially, Rayleigh tells Luffy the limitations of Bounce Man, and then conveniently predicts that Luffy will encounter someone with the abilities of Katakuri. Unclear if this is a direct reference or an implication that this ability to see into the future is more common than we may think. Regardless, he asks Luffy what he will do when he encounters someone with that ability. I love this. I'm a sucker for some good master and apprentice stuff, which is surprisingly extraordinarily uncommon in One Piece. Also, seeing them in their winter cloaks together gave me some unexpected feels, kind of like a Jedi vibe. I don't know why, but that image really resonated with me. So this whole Snake Man section of the fight is all I wanted this whole time. High speed, insanely powerful and over-the-top attacks, flying in all directions, non-stop. I loved it so much. The Stretchy Boys are going blow for blow. It appears they are evenly matched. So evenly matched, in fact, that they both knock each other out. But Katakuri does fall last, and notably, frontward. Throughout the entirety of their battle, Katakuri has made sure not to fall on his back to keep his reputation intact. There have been a couple of close calls, but he's always managed to avoid it. Once again, this is another echo of Enies Lobby, where Luffy refused to fall down in his final round against Lucci. When the dust clears, Luffy gets up first, then Katakuri follows. The perfect brother asks Luffy if he's gonna come back and take down Big Mom, and Luffy says of course he is, because he's going to be king of the pirates. Katakuri says that Luffy is seeing quite a ways into the future, and then finally falls on his back. Luffy takes the black hat he'd been covering his straw hat with, and uses it to cover Katakuri's mouth before departing. What an excellent final detail to showcase their mutual respect. I've been pretty hard on this battle, but I think it ended in such a fantastic way. Katakuri is not like the typical villain in this series. He feels like the polar opposite of Doflamingo, Luffy's last major opponent, so he was never really the issue here. In fact, I think he was the saving grace. If Katakuri was the perfect brother, the unstoppable monster that everyone thought he was, he'd be so much less interesting, and I don't think he would have brought much to this story. Instead, he essentially destroys himself throughout this fight. Yes, Luffy technically won, but really, Katakuri handed him the victory on a silver platter, simply because he came to respect Luffy's resilience in the face of insurmountable odds. Literally fighting against the future itself, Luffy continued to get up and continued to take a beating. It's when he began to overcome the future, adapting to Katakuri's ability and then beginning to master it itself, did Katakuri's respect for Luffy overcome his desire to defeat him. We see in the past that Katakuri was made fun of for his face, but unlike the expected backstory, like we had just seen with Pudding, Katakuri didn't give a fuck. It was only because his siblings were attacked because of his appearance that he decided to present himself as a stoic monster to the world. Not because he truly cared what anyone thought, but because he wanted to protect those he loved. It is thanks to his fight against Luffy that Katakuri sheds every last bit of the mask he built for himself. In the end, Brule returns to take care of him and asks why he got up only to fall on his back. He doesn't have an answer for her, but when he goes to admit the truth about himself, she says that she always knew. If I had the time in this video, I feel like I could do a full deep dive on this fight and how each round sheds away part of Katakuri's mask. Katakuri's mindset isn't very obvious, at least I don't think so, but if I had to make a quick assessment, which I do because you've already given me so much of your time, I'd say this. I think Katakuri was simply inspired by Luffy, a man who is nothing but his true self at all times. Luffy is a man who doesn't care what anyone else thinks or what the future holds. He is a man who will reshape even the future if it means achieving his goals and protecting the ones he cares about. At heart, Katakuri is a donut-loving boy who has hidden his true self for far too long. I think he did give it his all, but at the end, it's clear that he's happy Luffy won because Luffy represents something that Katakuri greatly admires. To show that respect, he purposely fell on his back, knowing word would spread, signifying that Monkey D. Luffy is capable of conquering the future.
The sprinkles are not that good.
Now, let's get out of this damn hellhole already. I've appreciated all the sunny evasion action that's gone down in this escape, For a story about pirates, the ship is very rarely involved in any of the climaxes, and while I'd love to see a bit more swashbuckling action, I'll take what I can get. Jinbei dodging Smoothie's attacks was just damn fun. Sanji meets up with the Straw Hats, while Gang agrees to lead Big Mom away with the wedding cake, because Chiffon is the real MVP of this arc. I guess Pudding isn't gonna react to the multiple instances she's directly seen of Sanji fawning over Nami, so that's a waste. But they don't stay long, as Sanji has to help Luffy escape safely. The Big Mom pirates have been quite busy during this time, gathering the entirety of their forces around Cacao Island, just for the sake of capturing Luffy, on the off chance their perfect big bro was defeated. Luckily, our pirate captain is aided by a certain Little Lion Man. Packoms returns to the story, and if you thought 4th Gear showed how much Luffy has grown in the last 2 years, you'll really be blown away by this. He actually sees through Packoms' disguise. Turning traitor isn't exactly Packoms wanted everyone to know about, but literally everyone sees through his weird luchador mask, so he's pretty much fucked. Due to Pedro's sacrifice, Packoms has decided to see his Big Bro's mission through and help the Straw Hats escape. He takes Luffy through the only mirror left on Cacao Island, where he then transforms into his Sulong form. Although he is overwhelmed by Oven's forces, so Luffy goes flying out of the front of his pants. I'm sorry, what? Packoms just stuck Luffy next to his junk? Luffy fit there? With a gooch pouch that big, maybe there is more to Packoms than meets the eye. Personally, while I like the idea of Packoms' transformation and sacrifice, I kind of feel like it was a big letdown. I feel like Packoms would have been better served if he just helped Luffy get to the mirror and warned him what was on the other side, which would also keep his status quo unchanged, because frankly, everything after that was kind of lame, and Germa showing up was way more narratively satisfying. So let's talk about that. Bringing Luffy back to the Sunny falls to Sanji, who struggles to escape from all of Big Mom's forces, but then his family comes to the rescue. They plan to fulfill their mission no matter what, and they each have a moment of pushing Sanji forward that I thought was really nice. Although they are emotionless crazy monsters, it does feel as though they've come to at least respect Sanji. But dude, this fucking scene, ooh, this damn scene! After Sanji gets Luffy back to the Sunny, it slowly sails past Germa's fortress, and I'm getting chills just thinking about Judge's silhouette. This was so good. At first, I thought Sanji and Judge were just gonna silently pass each other, but then Judge suddenly asks Luffy, why him? He goes on to list everything he thinks is wrong with Sanji, looking to know why Luffy would risk certain death to save a failure. So naturally, Luffy thanks him and says goodbye. Perfection. Luffy is confused why Judge just started listing off all Sanji's positive qualities, and this is satisfying on so many levels. Luffy's naivete and kind heart on full display, the rest of the crew getting some understanding of what Sanji has been through, and Judge not getting an answer to his question, but still demanding one as the Straw Hats sail away. This massive sack of dog shit didn't deserve an answer, and I don't think a big speech from the crew on why Sanji's cool would fit the series, so Oda had the villain do it without even realizing it. Fucking fantastic writing. And even though he's awful, even Judge has changed by the end of this story. Because he sees Sanji mean something to Luffy, it's clear to him that there has to be some reason for that, but he's such a proud, arrogant fool, he still cannot think of any. It's a slight shift in thinking that actually serves as a narrative victory for Sanji without having to physically fight Judge. This man started the arc as a seemingly all-knowing mastermind with a mental chokehold over Sanji, but ends the arc the victim of betrayal, desperately searching for an answer that's right under his nose. I thought this was so well done, I could not have asked for more. Finally, we no longer have to hear Big Mom shouting, wedding cakey, because the bitch gets to stuff her face. Big Mom takes a bite of the wedding cake, with everyone assuming that Gang poisoned it, and has the same exact reaction as everyone else who has tried it before. Pudding, Gang, and Big Mom all collapsed, those around them thought they're dead, and then they exclaim how they could die from how delicious the cake is. So, the ultimate payoff to this near 40 episode chase is part 3 of a running gag, which I thought was actually pretty funny. Then Big Mom chows down and goes to heaven. In the meantime, the Straw Hats have been surrounded once again, but this time the Sun Pirates save the day. Jinbei's buddies want to make sure their ex-captain escapes safely, and so they engage the Big Mom pirates, and I appreciated seeing how fishermen battle against ships, and of course we have the mandatory showdown that couldn't be passed up, Aladdin versus a genie. But things quickly go to shit in a pretty confusing sequence. Big Mom starts singing Soul Pocus, essentially a farewell song for the Whole Cake Island arc, and this is timed with her giant ship arriving to attack the Straw Hats. I thought the direction for the scene made it difficult to know what was happening until like halfway through the song. I thought Big Mom was on the ship, but she wasn't. It was just really weird, and I think it could have been handled better. But the song itself was a great send-off for the insanity of this setting, and of course, the story decides to try and trick you into thinking the Sunny was sunk by the end. Obviously not the case, or Frankie would kill himself, but it's revealed the giant fishman baby from the Fishman Island arc saved the ship by putting it in his mouth. Thanks to this, the Straw Hats can escape, but only if the Sun Pirates stay behind to hold off Big Mom's forces, and the big bad mama herself, who is fast approaching. I really like this final desperate battle with the fishmen, and I think the music was epic and fantastic, but it's all not gonna be enough. Jinbei decides that he has to stay behind with his friends. This guy just can't be part of the crew for long, can he? Luffy is visibly upset at this, and he shouts at Jinbei, asserting his authority as his new captain, commanding him not to die and to meet them at Wano, where they'll be waiting. God damn it. I love it when Luffy goes captain mode. It's never quite what you expect, but exactly what the situation calls for. So, as a member of the Straw Hat Pirates, Jinbei goes to assist the Sun Pirates in making this glorious whirlpool. It's such a cool visual for the backdrop of the Straw Hats finally escaping from the Toto land. The arc may be over, but there are still several interesting loose threads that remain unresolved. You may have noticed I haven't mentioned a certain gelatinous gal for a while. The last we saw Pudding before the end was hiding with Sanji in an alleyway, and she went to kiss him, but the scene cut away. I was pissed. I thought we weren't gonna get to see that sugary sweet Sanji x Pudding kiss, but there's a reason for that. Later on, we get the full reveal. Pudding asked Sanji for a favor, rushed into his arms, stole a kiss from the man she had grown so fond of, and then stole his memory of it. The last interaction they have is Sanji calling out to her, asking what favor she wanted from him. At the end of the arc, we see Pudding, now getting all the credit for making the cake that stopped Big Mom's rampage, crying alone, clinging to the memory that she stole from her betrothed. I'm not sure if we'll ever see Pudding again, but I feel awful for her. Yes, she treated Sanji like garbage at first, but look at her mother. Can you really blame her? Pudding experienced the first real acceptance and kindness from someone outside of her family, and it completely shook her worldview. In the end, she doesn't want Sanji to remember the intimate moment they shared, but why is that? Is it because she's too embarrassed by her feelings for him? Or is it because she's too ashamed of herself and how she treated him that she doesn't feel like a truly kind man deserves to live with the memory of kissing a monster? I thought this was so sad and not at all the usual character wrap-up in this series, but if this is where Pudding's story ends, I deeply respect it. And by the end of the arc, Big Mom arrives to confront the fishmen, while Germa is also taking some serious damage. It's left ambiguous what happens to both groups, and I think that's a fantastic way to end this arc. I wasn't expecting Germa to go beyond Whole Cake Island. Like, I figured they'd be one and done, but I think it's pretty clear this isn't the last we'll be seeing of them, and that's fascinating. Obviously, events carry into each other in One Piece, but nothing like this has ever been done before, so I'm very excited to see how the Sun Pirates and Germa 66 continue to influence the story. With that said, the journey through Whole Cake Island is finally over.
Whole Cake Island, baby.
Over the course of 3 40+ minute videos, you might be thinking that I've said all I possibly could about this arc, but as I object to the name of this channel every week, I've still got more to say. This script in particular I found pretty difficult to write because the finale for Whole Cake Island doesn't feel like a true finale. It feels like the story we'd been following since the beginning largely wrapped up with Pedro's sacrifice, and everything else was something new. Of course, there were elements that felt like conclusions. Everything having to do with Sanji certainly got its due and then some, but everything else almost felt like the start of a new story. I think that's why I've had trouble articulating some of my larger thoughts on this section, and why I was a little disappointed in my initial watch through. Maybe when I rewatch in the context of what comes after, I'll appreciate this section a lot more. But no real plot point wraps up by the end. The Sun Pirates and Germa are left ambiguous, Pudding is left a depressed mess, who knows where Gang and Chiffon are heading, we don't know what happens to Peccoms, Jinbei stays behind with a promise of returning, and Big Mom is still after the Straw Hats. For a conclusion, the only real conclusion is that the Straw Hats do escape. But what did I think about this arc overall? I loved it. I especially loved the two sections I talked about in my previous videos. I think they're near flawless. The section I covered today had its highs as well, but it's also where the arc started to lose me. I think everything having to do with Sanji and the Vinsmokes was excellent. It only served to enhance his character, his relationships to the crew, and flesh out the greater world. I think Big Mom as a character is a tough one for Oda to balance. I found in this final section she was largely annoying, but previously she was fantastic. The hunger pangs just felt like a crutch to keep her from being her true powerhouse self and save her for a real final battle. I thought that all the Straw Hats had really good showings throughout this arc, especially Brook against Big Mom. I thought Pedro's sacrifice was fantastic, and it's likely only to grow on me more as I progress throughout the series, and I really loved the dynamic between the Straw Hats and the Fire Tank Pirates. But of course, the icing on the cake, the through line that made this arc work so well, was the setting itself. This may be it. This may be my favorite One Piece setting. I have to think about that a little more, but it really framed the narrative of this arc in such a fantastic way that I think might be underappreciated at first glance. But now I feel like I'm really running out of gas and I need to stop. What do you think about this arc? Was I a bit too harsh in this final video, or do you agree with some of my criticisms? And who's your favorite Charlotte sibling? Let's talk about it in the comments. I want to take a moment to thank my lovely patrons who made this madness possible. You're awesome. I'm going to be taking a break from first impressions videos for the next couple of weeks as I gear up for Wano, but I have some other One Piece videos coming out in the meantime that I hope you'll enjoy. Thank you so much for watching this video, you absolute loons, and until the next time, I'll shut up.